and they had thrown probably about 15 robots in there for black hole. All those full body robots. They just threw them in there. And that was it. When I was working on the Universal lot, I would do the same thing. Universal has a much better back lot to walk. And they had an upstairs. And so, like they have the New York street. And you wonder, well, what's in those windows on the second floor? So I went up there and found out that they had all of these plaster castings stored up there. And it's like, well, these are interesting. I wonder what these are. And I pulled out one and I looked at it and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm holding the plaster cast of the monster from the creature of the Black Lagoon. And I pulled out some other casts and they were like his hands and then there were body pieces. They had the whole thing in plaster stored up there. So I took the helmet, the head, and I had them make a slush mold so I could have this head for myself out of latex. Of course, it dissolved after a few months. I didn't realize that.
There you go.
So that upset me, but I had it for a while. I've got pictures of my kids with it. But so then I went back a few days later, and there was a truck out there, and they were dumping all of these casts into the truck to haul them away. All of them. They were like Lon Chaney, and there were all of these historical people, their hands, and life mask kind of things. So Hollywood really doesn't care about their props. That whole upstairs area, there was a Buck Rogers twin boomed fighter, full-size fighter that was sitting up there.
Wow. Don't see that every day.
Well, I could have, but they just don't care about the props.
I have a question.
Sure.
How has the transition to high definition TV affected your designs? Does it demand more detail out of you, or?
No, my designs are perfect. They just don't make them that way.
There you go.
So my work doesn't change that.
Has that affected the transition to when they make the actual costume, though? Do they put more into the?
I would hope so. I haven't been in Hollywood for a long time. I work freelance in Massachusetts, but I don't know.
I could definitely say the craftsmanship has been really bumped up, and if you compare this piece, but it also depends on how much it's used and what your budget is, and quite honestly, it comes down to money. If you have a high budget, you're working for Marvel, you're going to get some money, right? And so you're going to get a lot more craftsmanship for that. So.
They use a lot of CNG for sculpting. A lot of the hands-on stuff has been removed because they need the perfection, the accuracy of the high-definition camera. And 3D scanning, do a rough sculpting of it, scan it, and then on the computer, they work out all the details and do a 3D printout of it, and then fine detail it out again, and then they've got their master to work on with making perfect replicas.
And I'll even go on to say, as part of the hobbyist, even them, like at one point to have a vacuum form machine, you were like the man. You could do some pretty awesome stuff, right? And I still think that, of course. But I'm even working with people now who have access to water jet printing machines where they will actually cut and form and do all those 3D printings, and they will bend metal and carbon fiber, And we're talking about like military grade armor for a costumer now. Mm-hmm. Just because it's becoming, maybe the networking is just that way, and maybe the guy who actually owns that shop said things out, hey, so these are cool, I'm gonna make it, so the technology is available to not only the industry but even the hobbyists has gone up, hardly anybody's vacuum form. Of course, I'm doing it because that's the way the originals were done. So I'm trying to replicate. Could you make a much better Cylon suit using different materials? Absolutely. others, we're not. So you've got to stay truthful and faithful in some ways, but not for others.
Yeah, there's people on the forum, on my forum, that they refuse to variate off of, well, this is a fiberglass piece. That's not what they were made out of. I only want a vacuum form piece, and it can't be styrene. It has to be ABS, because that was the fine line difference. Styrene is the common, easy stuff to use, while ABS was what was used on the show. So, you get the perfectionist and the other people, as long as it looks half-ass decent, it's good enough for me.
Don't get me started on the Boba Fett people. I'm one of them, but I'm not one of them. Any other questions? Burning in your souls?
Do you have projects that you're working on that you can ask these guys some advice about? It doesn't have to be Cylons or anything. Tinkerbell, anybody? Tinkerbell. Okay.
Now that you mentioned it.
Yes.
Well, when a producer approaches you for concept design, could you explain the process between you and the original person that came up with the concept? You know, how much freedom do they give you versus what they want? Stuff like that.
Well, if somebody, I normally don't do costumes per se,
But the design.
but in my design process,
Yes.
I'm in fact just started a project for Company X in England that has a script, and they want, I said I'm available as a resource, if you'd like to do something. It's a really cool company, and so they wrote back and they said, yeah. So eventually they agreed to bring me on as their concept designer. They're in pre-production, and it requires basically an alien and a UFO. And the alien, they need to look at the creature and what it wears and what it flies. And so they sent me some pages, like about 3 pages, 4 pages, describing everything initially, which wasn't a lot. And so I wrote him, and we actually Skyped, and I said, okay, there's not a lot of description here. He says, well, we're still trying to figure it out. Like, okay. So the person I talked to said, basically he told me the look that they were after, they wanted to look a certain way because of a certain reason, but they don't have a final idea or final shape in mind. And then that puts it in my ballpark. And I said, well, there's only 2 interiors for this UFO. Do you have other interiors in mind? And they said, well, it's very nebulous right now. We don't know. I said, I have the perfect drawing for that. I said, there it is. We laughed. But I said, if you want, I can sort of take what you have and fill in the blanks. And in this case, they were very grateful for that. They may not use them. But it's just like a lot of the other stuff I design. I design it, I attack every design project as if it's a real industrial design project. Because if I believe it's real, hopefully the audience will believe it's real. So I will go to the effort, like the work bee from Star Trek. I design how it docks, how you get into it, what the controls are like, all of that, which you'll never see. But it helps me understand where the parts meet, how it would really work. The fact that there's no screens in my version, that when they modeled it, of course, they went back to the old screens. My idea would be that whole windshield is one big readout, so the pilot doesn't need to be looking at gauges and dials. They just control it, in this case, with their hands. In reality, in 300 years from now, it'd probably be metal. But I'm just saying that I like to take things as far as I can so that I know where they fit in my mind, and then I can design it, because I work under the form follows function ruling. You know, if I understand the function of this ship, then I can design the form of it. That's how I attack everything. So in this case, it's pretty nebulous as to what they want it to look like. I said, well, what about the alien? Well, we want it to look like this. You know, they have this certain features that will later on change to these features. Like, okay. And the suit, there was no real description of that. A minor thing about that, it actually wears a helmet. So little minor thing on that. And basically I'm off to do sketches. Now, what I love doing is bringing the sketches to the producers, directors, whoever, and then we talk about it. Just like, oh, I never thought of that. Or, no, that's not the direction we want to go in. And then it's like, okay, what do you see? Then they would help me fine tune. You know, a lot of times they go in, they don't know until they see a drawing. And it's like, yes, that's exactly what I don't want. So then you go back to square one until you get them something that works for them, but also works for you as a designer. Because we have certain design senses that we think are important. So, there.
Well, to let you know, that's one of the things I enjoy about Next Generation is the functionality of the way everything works.
Thank you. They never use the bathroom. You know, Star Trek fans are fanatics on bathroom. Where's the bathroom? Well, this time I gave them a bathroom. They don't ask anymore. There was only one scene I remember where some guy comes out of there washing his hands. You know, it's like drying his hands off. And it's like, well, I hope he washed them. You know. Now, when I originally heard that they were going to have a Klingon on the Next Generation Enterprise, I thought, well, here's what we do. We design the bathroom. And on the floor, we have different stripes. And each stripe is a different species. Okay? Because then that stripe, you follow it, it will take you to your facility.
Oh, yeah.
In case you need to have different facilities. And I thought it'd be really fun to have the stripe for the Klingon go to the airlock. But they didn't do that. They didn't. Any more questions?
Well, we'll be around as well. Stop by, say hi, ask questions, poke at us.
You really want to tap this guy because he can he'll save you a lot of time by giving you some great answers. So look him up, Brian.
Or if you want me to just make you one, I can do that. There's my plug. Okay. Got a card. Anyways, anything else?
Is that it?
I guess that's a wrap.
Thank you for
Good,
staying
thank
awake,
you.
everybody.